Right now in Ontario, families are standing outside government buildings, raising their voices, not because they want something extra, but because something essential is missing. This is not a small issue. This is not isolated. This is happening across province, and it's happening consistently enough that families are organizing, speaking publicly, and demanding to be heard. The problem? Families are being forced to advocate for support that should already exist inside of education systems. The reality is that when basic access requires to protest, the system is not functioning as intended. We're told there isn't enough money. We're told that budgets are tight, that resources are limited, and that everyone needs to be patient. But the problem is that scarcity messaging is used to explain gaps in support, when in reality, this is framing shifts responsibility onto families to wait instead of addressing the system performance. The key point here is that when delay becomes the norm, they stop being temporary and they start becoming systematic. But when we look at Ontario's financial decisions, a different pattern appears. $1.4 billion for alcohol expansion, $2.2 billion for Ontario Place redevelopment, $3 billion in rebate checks. Problem is that large-scale spending is happening, not just consistently directed towards classroom-level support. This means that this is not about whether money exists. This is about where money is being prioritized. The reality check is this: funding decisions reflect priorities, not limitation. We see that when something becomes a priority, money moves quickly. Projects are approved, budgets are mobilized, timelines are accelerated. The problem is education support does not receive the same urgency, meaning that the issue is not funding capability, it is priority alignment. The truth is the systems respond fastest to what they are designed to prioritize. Inside classrooms, the impact is visible. School reporting daily staff shortage, students being sent home due to lack of support, educational and developmental needs going unmet. The problem is that support gaps directly affect students across everywhere to access to education. The reality is when support staff are unavailable, inclusion becomes limited in practice, meaning that the system is relying on adaptation instead of providing adequate resource. The impact? Families are forced to step in where institutions cannot. Ontario education funding exceeds $38 billion. Special education funding is approximately $3.8 billion. On paper, support exists, but the problem is that funding at the system level is not translating into consistent support at the classroom level. The reality is that there is a disconnect between allocation and delivery. This means that a funded system is not the same as a functioning system. The core insight is that what matters is not what is announced, but what is experienced. This is what autism families are speaking up about at Queen's Park. Not extras, not advantages. This is about access to education, safe and supported learning environment, consistency in care and support, true inclusion, not just policy language. The problem is that necessary support are often treated as optional. This means that the essential support is labeled as extra. Access becomes conditional, when the truth is that inclusion without support is not inclusion. In Northern Ontario, these gaps are amplified. Longer travel distances, fewer specialists available, limited access to services, increased pressure placed on family. The problem is geographic location increases the barrier to access, and the reality is that families in rural and northern communities must compensate for this system gap. It also means inequality is not just financial, it is also regional. The truth is, when access depends on location, the system is not equitable. So the question is no longer whether funding exists. The question is whether funding, priorities, and delivery are fully aligned. There is a gap between policy, funding, and real-world delivery. What needs to change? The solution is to ensure funding reaches classroom-level implementation, that it improves staffing consistency and availability, that it strengthens accountability between the funding and the outcomes, that it addresses the regional disparities in access to services, aligns policy promises within measurable delivery. Communities can act, share real experiences, support advocacy group raising awareness, engage in local and provincial discussions, document gaps in support, keep conversations focused on the solutions and accountability. The closing truth for you all: families are not asking for more than what was promised. They're asking for what already exists to actually reach their children.